Hello everyone, back to today's video. Going to have a look at weather next week, 10 days. In today's video, we can take us to around the 27th of October. So, once we've done that, dealt with next week, 10 days, we'll have a look at the CFS V2 for the next month as well. So, quite a bit to cram in to today's video. So, we've got Hurricane Ophelia out of the way now, of course. The remains of Hurricane Ophelia are moving away. Still pretty windy, though, up in the north. It's still packing a bit of a punch up there, but we will see the winds moderating away through the course of this afternoon, and things will be calming down. But it's changed the air mass now, so it feels a lot cooler and fresher, and it's an Atlantic airstream. This is going to be bringing some unsettled conditions through the rest of the week. So although today is quite a nice day, most of it, it's a bit of a respite, but go through to tomorrow and then through the remainder of the week and into weekend, it's going to be quite unsettled, and actually it might turn a bit stormy later Friday and into Saturday. Although after that, next week, signs are actually that high pressure may start to come back once again. I'll talk you through everything that's going on over next week to 10 days in a second. Before I go on with that, though, just say a big thank you to all of you for your birthday wishes. I'm always very surprised indeed that you remember that today is my birthday. So big thank you to everybody for sending through their birthday wishes, either on social media or at the comment box at GazOverVids. Yeah, big thank you to everybody for doing that, having a very nice day, and I've got a meal planned for tonight. So big thank you to everybody for their birthday wishes. I'm going to start off with the Central England temperature from Hadley. This hasn't updated for a couple of weeks, but it is updated now up to yesterday. So provisionally we are standing, up to 16th of October, we're standing at 13.8 degrees, which is an anomaly of 2.3 degrees above average. So we're running over 2 degrees above average for October so far, and I'm sure you can see that it's actually a little bit above September CT coming in at 13.5, which is almost bang on the 61 to 1990 average, a little bit cooler than the 81 to 2010 average. But quite unusual to see October looking warmer than September, because it is a cooling time of year, so you always expect October to be significantly cooler than September, and then you expect November to be significantly cooler than October, and then December should be significantly cooler than November, and so on until you bottom out in the middle of winter, and then you start to lift the temperature back up again into the spring. So we can't say, of course, we're only 16 now, 17 days into a month, we can't say that October will be coming out warmer than September, but at the moment it is a little bit above September, of course. Now, it's quite interesting, this 2 degree anomaly that we see here, because that's the kind of anomaly we was running at earlier in the year. So we have a look right way back to January, and in January we actually came out around the 30-year average, so no particular anomaly in January. But in February, we started this run of being around 2 degrees above average. So February comes out 2.3 degrees above average. March comes out 3 degrees above average. Very warm March this year. April was a degree above average. Then May and June both coming out again around 2 degrees above average. So from February to June, we had a long run of being somewhere around 2 degrees warmer than average. That moderated in July, and then from July through to August through to September, we see temperatures coming out much closer to average. Anomalies in July still a little bit above average, but less than a degree, and then in August and September actually ever so slightly cooler than average. So for 3 months from July to September, we sort of lost that 2 degrees above average temperature anomaly that we had from February to June. Now it looks like that anomaly in October has come back, although, as I say, this is only really for the first half of October. So we can't say, but we'll keep this 2 degree above average anomaly for the whole of the month. Although there's no sign, you'll see it in a moment, there's no sign of anything particularly cold showing up within the model output for the next week to 10 days. And 10 days time, we will be starting to run close to the end of the month. What we can say is that we're not going to have a cold and average October. That definitely is off the table. The only question with this October is how much warmer than average is it going to be. And it does look as though, even if we don't stick at that kind of anomaly, 2.3 degrees above average, it does look as though it will be a significantly warmer than average month, and a return to significantly warmer than average anomalies like we had earlier in the year. Of course, we'll keep you updated with this developing story over the coming couple of weeks. So, have a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts now from the Penn State University website for the next week to 10 days. We've got the E70F here on the top, the GFS, we'll have a look at it in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the actual high pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates to high pressure and blue to low pressure. So as I say, this is taking us to around the 27th of October, and the E70F is bringing the ridge back. So after a more unsettled interlude through the rest of this week and into weekend, as we get through to next week, E70F wants to build this ridge back in, quite strong ridge building back in as well. There is a cut-off trough out in the Atlantic, but the flow and the jet stream is doing something a little bit like that. We're placed on the mild side of a jet again, and we're close to a ridge of high pressure. Now, the exact air mass of this is going to be important because it is October, and it's into late October by the time you get through to 7 to 10 day time frame. So we may have to start thinking about some cold nights coming along, but it will depend very much on the exact air mass within this ridge, and also whether skies are clear. That will be an important factor as well. But it certainly isn't in a particularly cold position. There's no northerly flow really coming into that ridge, so I wouldn't expect it to be overly cold at all. GFS looks like this. It's a little bit more unsettled, but even so, still the same sort of idea. There's a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, trough down there to the south of the UK, and then another ridge over across central parts of Europe. We do something like that again with the flow and with the jet stream, and we're placed on the mild side of that ridge of high pressure, which is dragging the air up from a southerly, southwesterly type direction. So, yes, a little bit more unsettled there with the GFS compared to E70F, but both models are looking relatively mild as we run through to the 7 to 10 day time frame. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for Lincoln. We're looking at Lincoln today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, and we're much closer to average compared to where it was yesterday. So we have that very warm tropical air mass yesterday from the remains of Hurricane Ophelia. That, as I say, has gone, and we are now in a cooler, fresher air mass, but not cold. And there's no sign of anything particularly cold coming up, as I say. So overall, we do get a little bit of a dip there at the weekend. But overall, it looks like temperatures are holding up a little bit above the long-term average in terms of the upper air temperatures. So we expect days to be relatively mild, and nights particularly to be mild and frost-free. It's quite a lot of precipitation here on this ensemble, which perhaps is a little bit surprising, particularly given the E70F is building that ridge in through the course of next week. So you look at the ensembles from the GFS model particularly, you can see there are a lot of rainfall spikes there, really from beginning through to end. So with the GFS, as I say, it is more unsettled, and there's no sign at this stage of a particularly prolonged dry spell of weather coming up, particularly unsettled through the next week to 10 days, and then maybe a little bit less unsettled, but not dry as we go through to the end of October. So it's a little bit of a confused picture, this, actually, as we're going into the final week to 10 days of October. Just how unsettled is it going to be? These are surface temperature and air pressure ensembles from the GFS model again for Lincoln. So dealing with the surface temperature first of all. So maxing out at around sort of 15 degrees, a little bit under 15 degrees there as you go through the weekend inside of next week. I say we do get a couple of cooler days at the weekend inside of next week, and then returning to around 15 degrees with the temperature as we go through that final week of October. Maybe as we head towards November, a little bit of a cooling trend, although that's a very long way off. That's the 1st of November, of course, just there. So other than a slight dip in the temperature at weekend, sort of next week, associated with some very wet and windy conditions, looks like overall we're holding up at around 15 degrees Celsius, which for the second half of October isn't too bad. It's a little bit above average, and generally frost free at night. This is freezing, of course, just here, so most nights coming out between, say, 5 and 10 degrees Celsius. Maybe some signs of colder nights appearing later on. That might be associated with that ridge building for the final week to 10 days of October. But I think that's quite speculative and not all that well supported by the majority of those ensemble members. In terms of air pressure, so we're starting off at around 1,020 millibars. We do go quite low with the pressure at the end of the week into the weekend. So quite clearly we're going into an unsettled, potentially quite stormy spell of weather at the end of the week and into the weekend. And then next week, a lot of scattering. It looks like pressure is recovering, but there's so much scatter there, but I wouldn't like to say what does happen as we go into this final week of October. There are certainly several ensemble members in the GFS ensemble suite that are lifting the pressure up a lot and bringing in a proper ridge of high pressure. But you'll notice these ensemble members that are low with the pressure as well. So really from around, say, 26th of October onwards, I think there's too much uncertainty to say what's going to happen in that particular period. Temperature anomalies from the 17th through 25th of October coming out milder than average. This has been the case throughout most of October so far. So we looked at these anomalies in September, and very often they were showing cooler or colder than average anomalies. We've turned the corner back, turned the page back to warmer than average temperature anomalies once again. So milder than average, and quite substantially so, not just for the UK, but for the vast majority of Europe in the next week. Precipitation anomalies are coming out average to a bit wetter than average from the 17th, 25th of October. It will be a more unsettled week coming up. So this is the GFS for Friday, when we've got low pressure across the country. That'll be bringing quite wet conditions Thursday into Friday, and this area of low pressure is lurking down to the southwest of Ireland. Look what the GFS does with this as we get through into Saturday. Turns it into a major area of low pressure, quite a deep Atlantic storm, bringing severe gale force winds and a lot of heavy rain overnight Friday and into Saturday. That low pressure clears away from eastern Scotland on Sunday, leaving us showery with those westerly winds coming in. And then the early part of next week also looking quite unsettled. So high pressure is having a go at building across central parts of Europe, but we are left under the influence of this low pressure, and there is a weather front strung out there. I think it's mild, the air is coming up from the southwest, but probably quite a bit of rain through the early part of next week. We go to the second half of next week, and it's all looking rather complicated. Low pressure is close to the country, although pressure is building in the middle of the Atlantic, just there. We've got a bit of a mid-Atlantic ridge, and we've got pressure rising across central eastern parts of Europe as well. And we are under this trough, which is kind of being split apart, really, with the jet stream doing something rather like that. So probably the GFS wants to keep it unsettled into the second half of next week, but we continue to bring the air up from a southerly southwesterly direction, so it stays mild through to the second part of next week. That's how we go up to day 10, which is Friday 27th of October, with signs of high pressure starting to try and take over. All the time though, the wind remains from a southerly direction, so it's staying dry. It's staying mild, I should say. This is the ECMWF for Friday, and again, showers or longer spells of rain overnight from Thursday to Friday. Then quite a deep Atlantic storm system getting going into Saturday, bringing a very unsettled weekend. Low pressure slap bang over top of the country at midnight on Sunday, no doubt bringing a lot of heavy rain, quite strong winds with it as well. For the early part of next week, high pressure becomes increasingly influential. So this is the split between the GFS and the ECDF. We saw it on the height anomaly flow charts. This trough of low pressure is much more centred out in the Atlantic as opposed to being split apart across the UK, which leaves this ridge building across Europe. The flow's up from the south, so it is mild with this ridge, but as we go through to day 10, you see that high pressure just builds across the country, and it actually extends a long way. It extends from sort of Eastern Europe over there to the south of Greenland over here. So that's quite a strange looking chart, but the upshot is that it is bringing much drier conditions compared to the GFS. Still quite warm though with the temperatures. There's the upper air temperatures. They are looking quite warm. Obviously, quite what the temperature's like on the surface, we'd have to wait and see. Potentially you could get some quite cold nights, particularly if you get some fog forming under that ridge. But I think overall it is a fairly warm ridge, that, and I wouldn't anticipate all that much in the way of frost and fog from that one. The main difference is that it's much drier by day 10 compared to the GFS. Finally, just having a look at the CFS V2 for the next month. So these are the 500 bit of our height anomaly flowcharts broken down to week periods. The first week period taking us from today, 17th of October, through to the 23rd. We have above average heights to our south in that sort of position, below average heights up to the north. Looks like the CFS wants to have it quite unsettled actually, but pretty warm through the first week, through week 1. Then we go through to week 2, and this is quite a strange looking chart. Above average heights are to our south, below average heights in the Atlantic there, and above average heights over there to the south of Greenland. So do something like that, the flow and the jet stream. That might bring some quite cold weather. That trough there might bring some quite cold weather into Eastern America, by the way, but for us, the flow is coming up from a southwesterly direction, so it looks drier and still quite mild. Week 3, another change. This is from the 31st of October to the 6th of November, and above average heights building close to Greenland, below average heights through the UK in that sort of position. And that one looks quite a lot colder actually. That's quite a cold trough, and we are, I think, just about on the cold side of the jet stream as well. So that's quite a cold end to October, I should say, quite a cold start to November. Maybe a seasonably chilly bonfire night, you never know. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 7th through to the 13th of November. And we find that we've got above average heights across Central and Eastern and Southeastern Europe, and above average heights across Greenland, and then below average heights to the southwest of the UK. And with the flow and the jet stream, I think we do something a bit like that, bringing up more of a southwesterly influence, particularly into southern parts of the UK. So that's probably milder again as we go through into the second week of November. There's no sign of anything particularly cold showing up there, perhaps just a cooler interlude through early November, but overall pretty mild and chopping and changing really between drier conditions at times and more unsettled conditions as well. No sign of a definitive spell of cold weather before the end of October anyway. Right, been another pretty extended update for you today, so I hope you found it interesting and informative. I'm off to enjoy the rest of my birthday, and of course the 5-day forecast tomorrow, so come back to that. Thanks for watching.